Welcome to the Free the Wage Slave podcast, the podcast dedicated to helping frustrated 9-to-5ers get out of the rat race and succeed working for themselves. I'm Sky Kilji, a former corporate insurance wage slave who now travels the world year-round working from my laptop.
This is episode 1 with Abhi and Gabrielle from Year Disrupted. These guys are just 1 month into their digital nomad journey, going straight from California to Colombia. They're going to share with you how they did it and how you can do the same. I think you'll enjoy this one. All right, so we have Gabrielle and Abhi from Year Disrupted on the show with us today, and we're going to kick things off right at the top. So guys, tell us who you are and where you're from.
Great. Well, my name is Gabrielle. I am originally coming from California. I grew up in Colorado, but went to school in California and have been living there for the past 6 years now.
Yep, and my name is Abhi. Born in India and came to the U.S. for college. Went to an engineering school for my industrial engineering degree. Worked in the automotive industry for about 8 years and was in California for the past 4 years before we decided to sell everything and start traveling.
Right. And I love where you guys are at. I love your entire journey, the whole yeardisrupted.com website that you have. And we're going to dig into all of that. But paint a picture for us. What was life like before you embarked on this wonderful journey that you're on?
Yeah, so I guess we have a little bit of different timelines in our personal lives just because I am 6 years younger than Abhi, so I was a little newer into my professional career. But just a quick rundown from me. I studied actually creative writing in college. I've always been an insanely creative person, and that's always been a huge part of my own livelihood, I guess. But when it came time to graduate college, I became increasingly more interested in business and kind of entrepreneurship. And when I left college, I was straying away from that more creative and academic route. I didn't want to just be a writer, but that's where I discovered marketing. And I got a job offer from a company I interned for, and I was never really that excited about working for them. No offense to them. But I never felt super passionate about it. It was more like, okay, this is my option, comfortable salary, room to grow here. Let's just check it out. And if I hate it, I'll leave. And that's kind of what I told myself before even starting it. But we all know how that works. You take a job, you start off with a salary, and pretty soon that's just your life. So I had been working there for about a year. And I liked the work that I was doing. There were some internal issues with the company, but I soon realized this is what working is. This is what work life is. I'm lucky that I have a lot of really great friends who are older than me and meeting Abhi as well. And us two starting to date and realizing that a lot of people who were older than me and very well established in their career, making way more money than I did, higher positions, there was something missing. They weren't fulfilled. And that's kind of what I was gathering. And I could almost just see my life kind of projected in front of me, and that freaked me out a bit. So I was new into my career, but already starting to question things before I started thinking what if there was another way? What if this wasn't how it needed to be? And I was lucky that my gears started churning a bit early because there was some internal issues at my company, and my boss actually pulled me aside and said hey, you know what? If it might be a good idea to consider your next career move. And not that she was going to fire me, but just, our department, it was underfunded and nobody respected it. So she was kind of trying to warn all of us, if you want to make moves in your career, maybe now is the time to start looking. So luckily that issue at my company started really me questioning the entire system in general.
Yeah, I think that's quite an interesting point. It's so easy to get seduced by the benefits package of the company And, you find yourself living paycheck to paycheck. And so many people I talk to have that same story where, things are rosy on the outside, but inside this churning and this turmoil happens. And, I love what you said about projecting yourself maybe 20, 30 years into the future. For me, it was seeing the executives in the corporate and just realizing all of that money is not worth it for 80 hours a week and, a job you hate.
Right.
It's definitely something I see a lot of people with.
Oh, absolutely.
So Abhi, was your journey kind of similar to that?
Not really. So it was quite a bit different. I came, I've always been into cars growing up. I always wanted to work on cars. So that's kind of where, what I went to school for. And then once I graduated, I did get a job in the automotive industry. It seemed like that was the dream. I got a job at Toyota as an engineer. But as, years went by, so I moved to Cincinnati, Ohio, which is, right in the Midwest where all the automotive companies are, but it's very, blue collar. Started working there. First year was good, but then as you are working at the company, you realize it's not what you expected it to be. So even if I was working hard, I couldn't get a promotion at the company because you had to be at a company for 5 years before they would even allow you to get a promotion, and a couple other things. So I did realize that maybe that was not the company for me, but I still saw myself looking for other jobs. I thought maybe this is not the right fit, but there's got to be other companies out there that I would love to work at. And so I moved to California and started working for a tech startup. That was my last job, and basically everything but that job is what I wanted in a company. It was a tech startup, very startup culture, fast paced, great technology. It was an EV bus company, so something I really believe in. They were helping the environment, but what it came out to be is the corporate culture was still there. No matter how much work I got done, it became about how many hours I was in the office and, how I was getting along with other people, and I needed to impress my managers and VPs just to try to get a promotion. So I started to realize that too, that, even if the company is what you believe in, at the end of the day, just the extra amount of hours you're expected to be at work, whether or not you're able to get your work done at a faster rate, and just the corporate culture that's just not for me. And that's what kind of started making me look at where I am and the people at the company that were VPs and managers, just seeing if that's where I want to be in the future, and the answer was no. So that's when we decided, okay, there are things that we want to do with our lives that are not really what our current jobs are. So why are we still here? And why not just pull the trigger, take the risk, and quit our jobs and work on things we were passionate about?
Right. So talk to me about that process. The seed has been planted in both of you. I guess you're coming home and, talking to each other about how bad the day was. What was the process for you guys in, figuring out what you wanted to do and then, making that a reality?
Yeah. So at the time, at least for me, I didn't know much about being a digital nomad or anything else. And I always undersold myself. I always thought, I'm too young to start my own business. I'm too young to freelance. I don't have enough experience. Those are the limiting beliefs I told myself. But it was actually, I had a friend, kind of when I was starting to consider the next steps in my career, one of my friends told me to read The 4-Hour Workweek. And it's the second time in my life I've been recommended that book by somebody I trust. So I started to read it. And, I was at a frustrating place at my job. I hadn't even been there long. I was ready to leave. I, was starting to look at the steps I needed to take in order to get to a place where I could even prove myself. You know, you have to work a certain number of years in an entry level position. And kind of like what Abhi is saying, it's, you know, years before the work and the determination. So we actually last February, really almost a year, actually probably a year ago, we woke up early one morning and we went to a cafe and we did our dreamlining. And both our 6 and 12 month dream lines, they got us so excited. We basically were crying. We were so excited that we realized that neither of our dreams had anything to do with our jobs.
Right.
So that was in February, and that was a crazy realization.
Yeah.
That was shortly around then was when I started working, started exploring freelancing on the side, and I was still working a full-time job. And it was more just for like, let's see this. I always undersold myself, and it was really Abhi who was like, just do it. Just put up a profile, work on things that you're good at and see what happens. And so by April, actually, so 2 months really, I was in a position where I could quit my job, and fully go freelancing. And I wanted to, so I quit my job in April. And everyone was like, oh, did you get a new position? What are you doing next? I'm like, you know what? I don't know. I'm just going to figure it out. And I remember I was expecting so many people at my company on my last day of work to be like, I don't know about that. Maybe you should rethink
Right.
this. But instead, I got so many people who were 10, 15 years older than me with husbands and mortgages being like, I'm really jealous. That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
So a couple months of me working on my freelance business, thinking about how I could grow it, showed both of us just how sustainable of a life we could live if we decided to move into a non-corporate capacity. And I'll let Abhi kind of take over here for how he started, you know, thinking through that on his own, because basically I quit in April. We left in January. He quit in December. So there was a few month period where it was me working freelance full time to get something steady. And I'll kind of let him take over from here.
Right. So for me also, the point where, the seed was sown was that dreamlining part that we did, and realizing that what our dreams were had nothing to do with what our current jobs were. And that combined with, in March, I took a trip to Antarctica and I met a lot of people on the cruise who were working remotely and just traveling through South America. So just learning from their stories and how they were, living their lives, that also inspired me a lot. So when I came back, it started to become almost a weekly discussion between us that how awesome would it be if we could just travel for an entire year and make money while doing it. And slowly then with Gabby starting to make money on Fiverr, that further reinforced everything that yeah, look, she's already making great money freelancing, so this is doable. And then for me in August, September timing, it started to become more like
game time.
It was game time, and it was like,
Right.
I think we really want to do this. So I put up a freelance profile too, just to see if I wanted to make money while traveling and freelancing, what kind of money I would get. And same thing, I got lucky. I had a couple great projects right in the first month where I had, clients that were paying me on a weekly basis. So that gave me the confidence that I can do this too. And then at that point we were like, okay, I guess we're doing this in 2020. And I think late September, October, we decided to book our tickets.
Yeah.
And then it was just a matter of me quitting my job from that point.
And then we also discussed what, our dreamlines excited us so much. And for me, I thought I was crazy putting in my dreamline, I want to travel the world while generating income for 12 months. I literally wrote that before we even, months away from making this plan. I wrote that I wanted to own my own business, that I wanted to have a team. If I looked at it from fear and limiting beliefs, I'm like, I'm too young, I'm too inexperienced, I don't have enough money saved up. But we realized, what do we want to we both, okay, we check the box. This does seem doable. We can at least pay the bills next year. But what do we want to do if we can pay the bills? Like, what else do we want to do? And that's when I started thinking of working on my business, of growing my current services. Abhi always wanted to try day trading and get better at that. So it got us so excited of, if we can check the box that we have enough money to feed and house ourselves, like, what are the other possibilities? And that's, I think, what really motivated us to just go all in and decide to do it.
Yeah, I think for most people, the fear is quitting your job and having no income. And certainly that was the fear for us too. So just laying out what it would cost us for an entire year to do this, even if we were not making any money. And then just, looking at our savings and what income we had coming from freelancing, we felt pretty confident that, okay, we can make this happen.
That's wonderful. And I just want to dig into the freelancing a little bit. There's many paths out of the 9 to 5, and freelancing is such a popular one. It was the one that I took. And when I did it, I didn't use the skills I had in the insurance industry. I went into marketing. It was my, passion outside of work. So Abhi, with your first freelancing projects, were they related to your day job, or was it something completely different?
It was no longer related to my day job. So my last position was in a sourcing role, in a procurement role. But I've held a position in the past where I was a program manager. And so I'm a certified program manager. And when we started to look at what freelancing I could do, that was the one skill that there was a demand for. So that's the one I decided to set up a profile for. I'm a certified program manager, and it seems like there's a lot of startups and small companies that are looking for people to manage their projects. And that was the reason I used that skill.
That's awesome. I think it's definitely a smart thing to, dig back into your past, into those skills that, you've learned and put the work in at some point in the past. You can monetize them now, and something like project management that's recurring, it's a great way to get started. So I love that you guys were able to put up your profiles online and get the income coming in quickly. So were you finding clients on your own? Were you using some of the freelancing websites? Just talk us through in a bit of detail that process.
Yeah. So for me, I originally signed up for Fiverr and Upwork. And like I said, my background was in writing, creative writing. So the first profiles I put were just like, editing. That's my bread and butter. I love editing. But there wasn't a lot of demand for that. And there wasn't I didn't get many hits for that. So I thought, okay, well, how can I make something that's kind of my own and that doesn't exist yet? And I realized that, there's a lot of marketing services, a lot of editing services, but there weren't a lot of branding services. And what I loved about my last position, what I kind of made my own was the idea of branding companies. It's kind of a fusion of creative writing and marketing. It's like equal parts strategy, equal parts creativity. So I try to look on Fiverr and Upwork for what did exist and then kind of make something my own, maybe like what I could create that was unique, that wasn't just duplicating another service on there. So I put, I thought, okay, branding is kind of this vague umbrella term. How can I quantify it? So I kind of thought through my own system, and I was really lucky that somebody purchased my gig on Fiverr, I think on a whim. And that was when I had it really low price. It was just $15 for my lowest package. And I remember the first time I sent my order in, I was actually at a conference. It was kind of like a Find Your Passion, Mind Valley conference. And one of the big themes was monetize your passion. So it was, right. I feel like some crazy coincidence that I was submitting my first order on Fiverr as I was learning all that stuff. And so after Fiverr takes its commission, I made my first $12. Awesome. And I remember I cried. Right. I literally cried because I was so happy that I made it was the very first $12 I made on my own. And I got a 5-star review, and the guy wanted to work with me again. And then I don't know if he gave me just really positive feedback on the back end of Fiverr, but the orders just kind of started trickling in, and I was just getting amazing feedback. And this was coming from me, who told myself I'm too young, I'm too inexperienced to freelance. I was giving them so much value. They were so grateful. They were getting so much value, and it gave me a purpose to think that, okay, maybe I've stumbled upon something that people really need, that they're not getting from other gigs or other places. And then I think just the positive feedback loop on Fiverr continued, and then I was able to raise my prices and create other gigs, and then eventually get clients off of Fiverr who wanted to continue working with me. So that was just so reassuring, and it was so motivating, and just the great feeling of, you know, the little wins, the 5-star, the outside clients, then finally retainer clients, and then it just really built from there, and it was just such a great feeling.
I think that's super smart. Instead of doing what everybody else is doing and competing, you know, you took the time to find something unique, and the benefits really paid off. That's so smart.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Abhi, just walk us through on your side. So you're doing the project management, you've got some recurring clients. So I guess you guys are seeing the income come up to a level where you're comfortable to take that next step.
So for me personally, yeah, you know, I set up a profile on Fiverr too, and turned out that pretty much everyone who was looking for a project manager wanted something long-term, someone to manage their projects. So I met a couple clients who just wanted to put me on a retainer. And so right now, I would not say that I have enough income to make me feel that I'm comfortable. It's nowhere near the money I was making before I quit my job. But for me, the project management freelancing is only something I'm using to support my expenses and pay my bills. My main focus so far in the, you know, since we left the US and since we've been doing this remote work, my main focus has been on day trading. That's something I've been doing on and off over the past 5 years. I knew that's something, if given the ability to work on full time, I could really get good at. So that's the part I'm focusing on. I have 2 clients at the moment for project management that are regular clients, and you know, I have enough income coming in there to cover my bills, and this was kind of the plan, and so everything's going according to plan so far.
I think that's really common. What I see a lot, and my journey was, I was in a 9-to-5, and that was paying for me to do the thing I really wanted to do in my evenings and weekends. And now that I'm free of the 9-to-5, I have the thing that pays my expenses and lets me travel. And that allows me the time, you know, to build my side projects like this podcast and do those other things. It seems to be, you know, a common route for a lot of us. Mm-hmm. So what I'm hearing is you guys got to that point where you'd said, look, I've had enough of this corporate life, this future that's already planned out for me. You've dreamlined, you've started, you know, freelancing and getting your income up. So are you now at the point where you've jumped ship, or are you still, you know, where you were, still working a little bit just to make sure that this was going to keep working out before you left the country? Where are we on that timeline?
We are, if you mentioned jumping ship, we are completely in the water now, swimming around, but no, in a good way. We decided just the significance of beginning a new decade and, you know, 2020 new year. I think we're both symbolic people in that way. We decided, okay, what if we just think of it in terms of like 2020 world tour? What if we do that?
I love that.
So that was always kind of up ahead, like, okay, this seems like a good time to wrap things up, begin a new year and new decade traveling. So we actually celebrated New Year's with our friends and family back home, and then we took off for Medellin, Colombia on January 3rd.
That's awesome. So you've been there January 3rd, and am I right that you're wrapping up Colombia now?
Yeah, that's right. We decided to we decided to stay in Colombia for about 6-7 weeks. We left with the intention of wanting to stay in places for more like 2 to 3 months. But we just decided to test out the waters here in Colombia, to have a ticket in and a ticket out. But really our plan is to go to other places with less of a structured plan. So yeah, we are wrapping up our time in Medellin. We can't believe it's gone by so quickly. Right. Just a couple weeks took a couple weeks to really get the hang of it. For me, I had been working from home a bit longer. For Abhi, it was new. So just new city, new way of life, really just dove straight into that, especially for him. And now we are planning our next steps.
That's awesome. So how much time are you guys actually spending working versus exploring the location that you're living in?
So I think so far, pretty significant amount of time we are still working, because we are trying to grow our business and get to a place where we are comfortable with our income. I think right now we are still in a hustling phase. So I think for both of us, we work about 6 to 8 hours a day. I think
maybe 5.
Yeah, I guess.
We take a lot of breaks.
Yeah, I mean, there's breaks in the middle for
it's
sure.
Gotta be done.
And, we take long lunch breaks. But yeah, I think we're still working quite a bit during the weekdays. And then we still try to keep at least one day completely free for absolutely no work at all, and we don't even allow each other to talk about work one day.
I guess to clarify, like when Abhi, at least from my perspective, I was able to get to a point where I was making more money than I was at my corporate job. So for me, it's not necessarily like in a place of being comfortable income wise. I want to just make clear, like we are hustling right now because we want to, and we have these passions that we're exploring. We're both extremely entrepreneurial. We love projects. We actually love to work. So for us, like, and we're also working on our own blog on the side to create resources. And I'm diving into scaling my business. So for us, it's like an exciting amount of work where we are no longer working these, I would say, honestly, 5 hours a day, if I'm being honest, because we do take naps and go to the gym. But I would say these 5 hours a day are really just, it's creative time. It's time to explore. Abhi's working on his trading strategy. I'm working on scaling my business. So it's those passion projects that we're working toward that will make us that larger income. But it's really like, we're not clocking in hours so we can make X amount of money. We're really just exploring. So we are working, but in a way that's adding real value to our lives.
Right.
I think there's a bit of a myth with this digital nomad thing, the Instagram, and I'm probably guilty of this. You look at Instagram, it looks like, it's laptop by the pool and you're constantly in all the best places. I've been in Budapest now 8 days and I haven't left the apartment other than to get food.
Oh my gosh.
But, yeah, it's kind of crazy like that. A lot of nomads, they do work full time and even beyond full time. And I really like what you touched on, Gabrielle, is that, yes, the cost of living is lower. And if you're earning in dollars and you're paying your accommodation and your expenses in local, sure, there's a bigger differential and that's great. But, there's things you're working towards. So it's quite normal to really just put those hours in and hustle, as you said.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we wanted this year to be about. We want to see the world and get the things that we want to do out of traveling. But really, what we realized when we did our Dreamlines is Abhi wanted to explore trading. I wanted to explore owning my own business. And we just never would have been able to do that and give it the attention it deserves at our corporate jobs. So we're definitely not by the pool every day, but we don't mind it. Like it's a balance that we create for ourselves, and we've loved every minute of it so far.
Yeah, and it's like, when you're passionate about something, it gets easier. So we're not being forced to be in an office or sit at a desk anywhere. We know what we need to get done for the things that we're passionate about. And it becomes a lot easier because we're working for ourselves and these are the things we want. So we just sit down and work really hard when we have stuff to do. And when we get our stuff done, we go out and have fun.
Yeah.
So it's definitely been a great balance working here than it was back home.
Yeah, totally.
Definitely. definitely. I think the freedom is just such an underrated part of that, and trading that extra money that we're maybe not making for the freedom, you'd make that trade every single day of the week, no doubt.
Right.
Absolutely.
So, year disrupted. Is it a year disrupted, or do you think it will become a decade disrupted?
We've asked that question ourselves.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
I had friends who basically said bye to me, and they're like, "You're not coming back for a while. I can't believe you're only going for a year." I think that one thing Southern California neither of us grew up there, but it became our home. I moved around a lot as a kid, so Southern California felt more of a home to me than anywhere else. So I think we originally entered it in the year knowing, okay, eventually we might want to like settle down and get a house or get a dog or something. But I think within like a matter of weeks in being here, we're like, we might be here longer than a year. I'd say chances are we probably will be traveling for longer than a year. But I think one thing we've totally realized, and excuse me, it gives us something to work towards, is we want to be location independent in our lives, in our lifestyle for the rest of our lives.
Right. Yeah, I think given how fast these past 6 weeks have gone by, and before we even left, we kind of had the feeling that 1 year seems like it's going to fly by before we know it. So there's a pretty good chance that this may turn into more than a year disrupted.
Yeah.
Yeah. You guys are unemployable now, that's for sure.
I know. I've taken a big red marker and just put an X through my CV.
Right. It's the best thing to do. So what's next on the travel bucket list? What are the places you've got in your minds and in your hearts?
Well, we are headed to India for about a month for most of March to spend some time with Abhi's family and see the country. I've never been to India. And then really where we want to post up is we miss the water. So we actually, you caught us at an interesting time because I'm sorry. Our plan had always been to go directly to Bali and post up there for months. But now we know we were going to Southeast Asia. We originally thought it would be like Canggu, a nomad hotspot in Bali by the beach. But now that we've like kind of made this our own and figured out what we want, figured out what we don't want, we don't know right now. Yeah. We're like, we really need to figure that out. We're headed to India for a month. But what's amazing is like, we don't have to go to the main hotspot. We can find another place and make it our hotspot. So that's kind of what we're thinking about right now.
Yeah. So we've been like looking at places in Canggu, and what we've realized is it's more expensive than we would have expected it to be. And then it just seems like where every single influencer and remote worker is going to. So I think between her and I, we personally want a more authentic experience and get to really like deep dive in the local culture. So we're starting to look at maybe if there are other places that are not so packed with influencers and remote workers where we may have a better experience. So yeah, right now.
No knock on our own community. We love it. But, we're just like, we love the possibilities. We can go anywhere. So, at first we were like, oh, we'll hop from one hot spot to the next. But really now that we're in the thick of it, we're like, we can go wherever. I'm sure you feel that way in Budapest. It might not be first on someone's radar, but I love that city. So we kind of want to find a place and make it our own a bit.
There's definitely that middle ground between I love meeting people who are on the same journey because I can learn from them, but in the same way, I want to get immersed in the culture. And as Abhi said, that authentic experience. So I think striking that balance between the two is so important. And, that really makes the year disrupted such a great and fulfilling one.
And that's what we love about travel. I mean, we realized that on our first date, how much we love travel. So part of traveling is really getting to know a place and the culture. So that's what we're excited about, at least for our next few steps here.
Yeah. So I'm a bit of a tech guy. So I love My Bose headphones, for example, I'm wearing them now. They're like the greatest thing I've ever bought. So I always ask people, what are those like essential pieces of tech or apps or equipment that just make that nomad life easier for you?
Oh.
I am going to completely let Abhi answer this one because I am a poet at heart. So honestly, a notebook and a pen is my heart and soul. Abhi handles all tech in this lifestyle, so I'm just gonna let him take it away.
Yeah, I think for us, we may have packed more tech than a normal remote traveler or remote worker. So I think as far as essential goes, obviously, your phones, your computers, headphones,
giant monitors.
Yeah. But then, me being a trader, I knew I needed extra screen space, so I had 2 monitors at home. They're both like 30-inch monitors, and we decided to pack those and bring those with us. So everyone we've told about
everyone
those
has laughed at us. Yeah. Not a single person has not laughed at us.
But they've come in really handy for our home offices, especially for me because I need to look at a lot of data. Other than that, for tech, I love taking photos. That's kind of my hobby. So I did bring all my camera gear with me. Because we're also recording ourselves, we do have some microphones we packed with us. Other than that, we both brought our headphones. So I think, we definitely packed a lot of tech, and at some point during this year, we may get rid of some of it. Yeah. But so far, we've needed everything we packed.
I'm personally just a sucker for my own Apple Watch. I don't really use it for anything but activity tracking, but just for the sheer purpose of we can go to salsa lessons and figure out how many calories we burning 800 calories dancing salsa. I don't know. I love counting different activities, and that's one thing we love at You're Disrupted is getting involved in local hobbies. So I've taken up salsa here. So I love how my Apple Watch is adorably able to track all of that.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you mentioned Year Disrupted, and I want to dig into that a little bit with you guys. So what is Year Disrupted? What is it today, and what do you hope it will become?
Yeah, so back home, now it seems crazy because we're fully inundated in the digital nomad lifestyle, meeting digital nomads. But like I said, I didn't know anything about what this lifestyle was. I was I had stuck my head into the corporate world. I didn't even know people were doing this. And if they were, I thought it's because they had a lot of money or something. But we really want to be a resource for people to learn from just to get a candid view of our own journey. And then we really want to teach people things that we wish we would have known, whether it's finding a place, how to budget, how to start your own freelance career, diving into that. So for us, we're kind of multi-platform. We have a podcast where we share just kind of deep dive into different topics, a blog where is really a resource platform, and then our Instagram where you can see all of Abhi's amazing photos and my weird captions, and kind of just get an idea for who we are and what we stand for. And Abhi honestly came up with the name, but we loved what that meant for our own lives.
Right. Yeah. So the goal with Ear Disruptive was when we started to look into this whole process, a lot of the resources we found were people who were already doing this for a really long time and were well established. It wasn't really clear what they were doing for work, but it seemed like, yes, they were remote workers. So we couldn't find anything for people like us who were just starting out, and the questions about what to pack or how do we go about budgeting for this year and how could we really quit our jobs and find extra income. Mm-hmm. So those kind of things we really couldn't find anywhere. We just found, top 10 places to go and what each city is about and the local culture and the nomad culture. So we decided that a lot of people that were our friends and family were asking us questions about how did you decide to do that? Mm-hmm. How did you find ways to make money on the side? Those questions were not answered, and we had to figure those things out on our own. Mm-hmm. So we decided to create a platform where we can help people find those answers to those questions.
And we wanted to also talk about the digital nomad philosophy. I think you touched on something great, which is it's not all poolside cocktails and, beaches and stuff. It's such a fulfilling way of life, but it's one that takes mindfulness and balance. So we also wanted to tap into the philosophy tools we learned, like like dreamlining or fear setting, or even I wrote like a 1,000-word blog on the day I quit my job, and things like that, where we want to show people that they're not alone if they're having these fears or these wins. So we just want to continue to grow it. Really, we want it to be like an idea, a brand, a thing that people can maybe apply to their own life. And we want people to associate it with positivity, authenticity, travel, mindfulness, and an entrepreneurial spirit. I'd say those are our pillars.
And then the name Year Disrupted came from, just when we were thinking of doing this over and over again, the term disrupt came in, that we are about to disrupt everything that we've been doing in our lives, everything that's been taught to us. Growing up, it's always been graduate in high school, go to college, graduate, find yourself a nice job, and then just work for that retirement and get a house. And that's been the way of life for people and our parents and people older than us. So for us to change all of that and say we don't have to live that way, and that doesn't have to be our life, was in a way disrupting all of our beliefs. And that's kind of the reason where we came with this year, is about disrupting everything and starting over. And so it's Year Disrupted.
I love that you guys are bridging that gap between the point where somebody says, okay, I'm ready to do something about my life. So they're ready and they're willing, but they don't really know how. So I love that you're filling in that gap and answering some of those questions. So where can people find you? This is the chance. Drop all of the socials, all of the links. Let us know where we can find and follow you.
Yeah, well, we were lucky that Abhi came up with a fabulous name that was untapped so far. So we are Year Disrupted on all platforms, at Year Disrupted on Instagram. We have a podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, Year Disrupted, and yeardisrupted.com. So short and sweet, no variations in the name. And those are all the platforms that you can find us on.
All right. And I recommend everybody does follow these guys. I love what they're doing. They're doing great work and sharing their journey, which I think is so important. They're not just showcasing the highlights. They're showing you absolutely everything, all of the questions you need answering, the good parts, the bad parts. I would definitely follow Year Disrupted. So guys, just as we wrap up the podcast, I want to say that it's been a pleasure having you on there, and I'd love you both just to share some final words for those people out there who are where you were, who are thinking about doing something and they haven't took the leap yet. What would be your final piece of advice for them?
For me, I would say one of the best pieces of advice I learned from another entrepreneur, Jules Hurd, the founder of Huel Drinks, is that nothing can replace doing. No amount of planning, thinking, or what ifing can replace the value of doing. So if there's something you're thinking about, doing is a critical part of that. So it's kind of like a Nike just do it thing, but be mindful and do it. I would say right. that's my final words.
Yeah, my final words would be just do not give into the fear. I think for me personally, all the growth in my life has been by overcoming fears. I've quit my job twice and, had a lot of other moments where I had to overcome fear, and it's always turned out to be a great experience. So I would just say, this life is totally possible. You just have to not fear about what's going to happen and just look at all the downsides and take the leap of faith.
Wise words. Guys, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you on. And everybody follow Year Disrupted on all of the socials.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Thanks, guys. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.